everybody. Welcome back to Passions Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the soap opera Passion. I'm back today with returning guest host from last week, Garentch.
How's everybody doing?
How you doing, Garentch? You enjoy this week?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Ready to get into some passions talk?
Yes, I'm I'm very ready. Actually, this week the episodes were pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Dare I say, quite exciting.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me like scenes of a movie, you know what I mean? It's very riveting, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it was dramatic. There was drama. There was so much drama.
Yeah.
It was
The pacing was pretty good. It's like the rare times that passion kind of,
I agree.
like really, I mean, yeah, they really worked it. All the scenes kind of worked for me.
Yeah, and in October, so we're out of the summer because in the summer months we were moving things along too. The pacing was really good, and then the pacing started to kind of slow down again. But yeah, I really enjoyed this week's pacing. That we were moving things along a little bit.
Yeah.
So y'all, Whitney's in the elevator shaft with Julian, which was my favorite scenes of the week.
Yeah, I know.
Whitney and Julian together, my favorite scenes of the week.
It's like Julian gets in the scene and he raises everybody's acting level. You know what I mean?
He does. That's such
yeah. Just everything that I've learned about in film school, like acting wise, like I see it when Julian acts to the T. You know what I mean? So like I really liked seeing that. It was very entertaining.
It was great. It was great to see Whitney too kind of expanding and going a little bit differently. And just like what I think I made this comment last week about the crossover between different characters and stuff. So it was so nice to see Whitney talking to Julian, right? And like having like this heart to heart. It was really interesting to see and interesting to watch. And so we're gonna get into it. But before we get into the episodes, we're gonna shout out to our patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to Muna Shea, Lisa, Zach. Our historian Zach is back. So welcome back, Zach. Sid, Sarana, Randall, Hannah, Camelia, Jeanette, Eric, Fantasia, S, Sean, Larissa, Maria, Lisa, Jessica Jean, Laura, Karen, Uche, Justin, Paige, Casey, Garentch, Tom Bergeron, Daisy, Shane, Kelly, Taylor Harris Crane, DJ, Kelly, and Rodo. Thank you all so much for being patrons and hanging in there with me. And we're having a good time. We're actually having a watch party. Well, by the time this comes out, we will have watched it. But it's Saturday, Monday. We're having another watch party. So I'm really excited to see everybody again. And we're going to hang out and do personality quizzes, I think.
Those Enneagrams and...
on some of the characters. So if you would like to become a patron, go over to patreon.com/passionspodcast and sign up for whatever tier you find most agreeable. And with that, on with the show. So we're talking episodes 831 through 835 today. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this week we're going to start with our Sheridan and Luis storyline. I don't even want to use the bloom bloom music, but going on. Anyway, here's your bloom bloom. All right, so we're getting into Sheridan and Luis. Let me preface by saying this, and this way I go ahead and get it out of the way, and I don't have to keep saying it over and over again. Luis and Sheridan refuse to come to terms on what they should do here. So Luis and Sheridan are going to go back and forth throughout the entirety of this storyline right now, or this week, on whether they should tell Antonio or not. What else is new, right? Like this is what they do the entire week. It's very annoying. I also want to go ahead and say and get it out there that Sheridan is pissing me off. Sheridan, yes, Antonio, we know I hate Antonio. I feel like that goes without saying. Sheridan is starting to really piss me off because speak up for yourself. Say something. She says 5 lines this week. none of which are her standing up for herself against Antonio. Is all just telling Luis, like, I just don't want Antonio to die. Stand up for yourself. All she has to do is say no. That's not a shock to that man. It won't kill him. So anyway,
mind you, a lot of time during these scenes, you don't see him getting sick or anything. I think there's just like one instance. So like, why are you constantly thinking about this?
Yeah, he seems fine, and honestly, since he seems fine right now, I'm not saying Sheridan has to tell him the truth, but in this moment, which reminder, I'm sorry, y'all, we just jump right in. Remember, Antonio has ambushed Sheridan with a wedding. Yeah. So, and Liz and Beth and Luis have shown up to try to stop the wedding, but Antonio's basically not going for it. So we pick up this week. Liz has gone off with Antonio to talk because the justice of the peace got called away. So they had some time before they could get married or do the ceremony anyway. So he went off to talk to Liz. While he's off talking to Liz, Luis and Sheridan are going back and forth about whether they should tell Antonio the truth. And Sheridan basically says that she was going to go, before Luis showed up, going to go through with the wedding. And now that Luis has shown up, is still going to go through with the wedding because she doesn't want to kill Antonio. It's just a lot of talk about how the shock will kill Antonio. And she says she doesn't want to be the one to end his life. It's blah, 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 blah. They argue back and forth. Luis says to her, I'm not going to let you marry my brother when I love you with all my heart. He says, I'll do whatever it takes. And I don't care who gets hurt, even if it is my brother. And he says, if I marry him, will it save his life? What? What is this note? I don't know what that note means. Maybe I wrote that. Oh yeah, that's definitely me. Sorry, these are my ideas.
I know she's.
Okay, so Luis says, I love you with all my heart. I'm not going to let you marry my brother. I don't care who gets hurt, even if it's my brother. And my thing is, even if Sheridan marries him, it won't save his life, right? Like, he's dying. So just say no right now. That you don't want you. This is actually, the more I thought about it this week, the more I was like, this is actually such a non-conflict because Sheridan very easily could say to Antonio, this is not what I want. I want to have a nice wedding. I deserve a nice wedding after all that I've been through. And then take the next few months to plan your wedding while you wait for him to die, right? Like, I don't know. Because he's still going to be sick whether you marry him or not. So this isn't going to save his life. I think she says that. I think that's why that note was so confusing to me, because I feel like she says like marrying him basically is going to save his life, but it's not going to save his life. He's still sick. Anyway. Meanwhile, Antonio is catching up with Liz. She's very obviously uncomfortable because she knows everything, right? Luis has downloaded her with all of the information regarding his past with Sheridan and Antonio's illness. So she's not saying anything, obviously, because she doesn't want him to die, because she cares about him deeply. But she's very clearly upset and uneasy. But he doesn't really care. He actually notices, like, oh, yeah,
he clocks it.
You look so sad.
Look like he lost the best friend or something like that.
Yeah, he faints. She looks sad, and then he faints. And then when he wakes up, he tells her, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. It happens all the time. I went to the hospital and the doctor checked me out and said I was fine. So nothing's wrong with me, but I just keep fainting. Get a second opinion. That's
pure comedy. Like, you have all these, he listed a whole bunch of ailments that he's like going through. And it's like, oh yeah, don't worry. It'll pass. It only happens for minutes.
It only happens 3 times a day for 10 minutes at a time. I'm fine. What?
let that go undetected for a little while longer and see what happens.
It's insane. And the fact that he's like, yeah, and the doctor at Harmony Hospital checked me out and said I'm fine. So I'm just keep having these fainting spells, but nothing's wrong with me. That doesn't make any sense. You're a grown man. Get a second opinion. Dude, come on now. Yeah, Liz feels very conflicted about whether to tell him that he's sick or not. Like you can tell that she's like trying to figure out what she should do here, but she doesn't tell him anything, which I do understand because they've told her that a shot could kill him, but I don't know. She's supposed to be like his one real friend around here now. I don't know. I get why she's conflicted because she thinks it might kill him if she told him. But even if she didn't tell him about Luis and Sheridan, I do kind of wish she had at least told him, hey, have you thought about getting a second opinion? Right? Yeah. Like, even if she didn't tell him, like, I know that you're sick because I was told and everybody in town knows you're sick, but you. Even if she didn't tell him that, maybe she could have led him to, well, I think you should maybe go to the hospital anyway, go back to the doctor. Not that he would listen to her because he doesn't give a fuck about her opinion or her feelings. Yeah, well, but it would be, she would at least be trying to save him, Yeah. But what'd you say?
No, I said he's just concerned about Sheridan. That's his main focus.
Yeah, Sheridan's his main focus, and I guess his health be damned. He doesn't care about himself. Yeah. So Antonio tells Liz that he wants to go to St. Lisa's, to her island, for his honeymoon.
Oh, God. Yeah, I had a note about this.
Brother, this guy stinks!
He wants to go on his honeymoon to St. Lisa's, he says, because it's the place where Sheridan and I fell in love. Now, I want to be clear. After he does this, after he tells her that, he then also says to her, it means a lot for you to be here, Liz, because you're my best friend. And I know things didn't work out between us like you wanted them to, but I'm glad to have you here. So you know that this woman loves you, or at least was in love with you at some point. And you think that it is a nice thing or a prudent thing to go on your honeymoon at her property, and flaunt another woman, the woman that you basically kind of left her for, even though they weren't together. I want to be clear. I want to be as fair as I possibly can to Antonio. Liz and he were not together, but he clearly knows that Liz is in love with him, right? That's obvious.
They dated, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. I just hate how, like, what do you call this? Like, he's basically playing in her face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, and he's trying to have his cake and eat it too, right? Yeah. And Liz is taking it because she loves him. It's kind of like she's kind of his Beth, which she and Beth have a conversation way at the end of this storyline. But she and Beth have a conversation wherein they basically kind of say that they're each other's counterparts in the storyline. So. She's basically doing the Beth thing where she'll take second. She's actually happy to take second if she can even get it, right? Yeah. But yeah, I didn't like that he wants to go on his honey. And like, then he says, oh yeah, and Sheridan's so rich and I'm sure she's gonna give you money. Giving away Sheridan's money. Telling Liz, like, I'm sure Sheridan, that's not your money to tell her. That's not your money to give away. That's not like, yes, I do think that Sheridan does owe Liz something, but it's not Antonio's place to say that to Liz and be like, yeah, don't worry. No. Sheridan's so rich and I'm sure she's going to take care of you and give you plenty of money and she remembers how much you helped her. It's not your money.
Yeah, that's wild.
I don't like him at all. So anyway, after their little talk, they go back to the chapel area where Sheridan and Luis have been arguing, right? But he comes back and he says to Sheridan, well, you ready to get married? And she looks at him and just goes, yes, yep. Girl, Sheridan, bitch, stand up. Say no. All she has to do is say no. She's getting on my nerves. I hate this like weak, shrinking violet of a person that they have turned her into, that she doesn't have any autonomy and she doesn't have like, I'm not, you know what? I ranted about it last week. I'm not going to rant too much about it this week. Just know, I believe that if Sheridan just said, no, Antonio, you know what? I've thought about it. This is not what I want. It would not fucking kill him. I don't think it would kill him. So anyway.
Sorry, can you cut again? You hear them?
So yeah, she just agrees to get married right now. And Luis says, well, stop. You know, there's something I need to say. And then they drag things out like impassioned style, right? Like we cut back to them like 10 times before he ever says anything. And then he finally says, you two can't get married. And he says, things have gone too far and the truth has to come out. Like, those are the words that came out of his mouth. You two can't get married. This thing has gone too far and the truth has to come out. And he looks at Sheridan and she kind of shakes her head and looks concerned. And he can tell that she doesn't want him to say anything. So he just says, you know, my mama's going to be crushed if you get married without her. And Antonio says, well, we already talked about this and we'll have a big church wedding when we go back to Harmony. But this ceremony is just for the two of us. We already talked about this, Luis. Well, and then Luis, I thought this was going to blow up, but it was a big nothing burger. Luis enlists Beth's help. He says, Beth, will you talk some sense into him and tell him that this isn't right? And then Antonio says, oh, I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. So I thought that he was going to be like, Beth's the one. This was Beth's idea. I was hoping that, to me, that was like a logical, like, frame. Like, he needs backup right now, right? Luis is against this. He needs Beth. Beth would be a logical person for him to call on to back him up, since this was her idea. But he does not. He doesn't say anything. He says, let me see. He says, I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. When Sheridan and I get married, why don't the two of you get married with us and it'll make it a double wedding? That was so weird and random. It was so, because y'all, first of all, y'all already been talking about a double wedding. So what do you mean? I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. Y'all did think of this. You already talked about this. This is old fucking news. And then I don't know. Because at first I was like, I thought he was saying maybe y'all should get married right now. Like, when we get married, y'all get married right now. But that's not what he was saying. He was talking about when they have their wedding. So, God, I hate him so much. Anyway. Because I thought for once Antonio was going to say something that was going to move the story along and help us in some way, but no, he just said some asinine bullshit. And so, my notes are so funny. I'm sorry. Sometimes the things that I write, because I said,
that's cool.
I thought he was going to be like, well, this was all Beth's idea anyway. And then I wrote, but he's a fucking idiot. So why would I think he would do anything to move the fucking story along? Sometimes I get mad while I'm writing my notes and it gets a little spicy.
Passions will do that. They always play this one note all the time and it's often frustrating. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How many times have we played this one, I don't know, this back and forth with
they sing the same song over and over. In fact, they don't even sing the whole damn song. It's like somebody who only knows one line of a song. You know, you ever get one line of a song stuck in your head? It's like on a grand scale with Passions, where they're just saying the same line over and over and over and over again. Exactly. And nothing happens. So anyway, Luis says, you know, I can't marry Beth right now. Oh, actually, no. So I fucked up. I was wrong. Luis. So when Antonio said, yes, we should make this a double wedding, he was talking about right now eloping together as a double wedding, which is even fucking stupider. Like that's even dumber. But then Luis says, well, I can't marry Beth right now. It wouldn't be fair to her or mama. And he says, Beth has waited a long time to marry me and she deserves to get married in a beautiful cathedral. I don't want to cheat her by getting married in some justice of the peace's living room. I love that. I loved that. It was like the most effective little speech. But Antonio wasn't going for it. He was like, what are you trying to make me feel guilty here, Luis? And Luis is like, yeah, if it stops you from eloping with Sheridan, sure. I'm trying to make you guilty. And then Antonio turns to Sheridan and says, well, she doesn't have any problem with eloping, do you, Sheridan? And she's like, she just doesn't say anything. Again, Sheridan is pissing me off because that was your moment, Sheridan. That right there was your moment. It's not going to kill him if he says you don't have any problem with eloping, do you, Sheridan? Which she has already said that. Well, technically she didn't really say anything. She told Luis that she said something, but she didn't. When she said, I tried to tell him that, you know, your parent, it was crush your mother and blah, blah, blah. But we never witnessed her saying that. Maybe it was off camera. We never witnessed her saying that. Anyway, this was her moment when he turns to her and tells her, you don't have any problem with eloping, do you? And then she could say very nicely, very sweetly, she could say, actually, this isn't the wedding that I want. Boom. Easy peasy, over, done.
Exactly.
I mean, he might try to ignore her, which he does, you know, and be like, but this is for us. And I just want to make you my wife and I just want to marry you right now. And it's like, but a wedding and a marriage involves two people and it needs to be about what we both want. And we both want to get, even though the truth is they don't both want to get married. But for story's sake, let's say we both want to get married, right? But I don't want to get married like this. So we both want to get married, but we don't both want this elopement. So let's skip this. But Sheridan is not standing up for herself at all. She's not speaking up for herself at all. Frankly, if I was Luis, I would be a little more perturbed at Sheridan than he is. He's giving her a lot of grace in this. He really is. Because the things she says when they're together, like her telling him that she was going to marry Antonio.
Yeah, she seems to be more committed to stick to this whole, like, let's protect Antonio now.
Yeah.
Right? Like first she was kind of torn, but now she's fully made that leap. Like, yeah, this is the you know, the hill I want to die on.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is when the justice of the peace returns from wherever the fuck he was. I don't know where he was, but he comes back and he's like, you people ready to get married? And then he says, I need to have a word with the guys for whatever reason. So they go off to another room. Meanwhile, the ladies stay back. Beth, Sheridan, and Liz stay back and they discuss. And Sheridan says that she can see the look in Luis's eyes, that he's not gonna let this wedding move forward. He's gonna put a stop to the wedding. Bitch, you could put a stop to the wedding. You could do it. And then Beth says, no, you can't let Luis do that because, you know, if he does, then Antonio will die and you don't want that on your conscience and it'll ruin your marriage with Luis will be ruined because you'll always have this as your foundation that you murdered his brother. It's like, I mean, look, Beth, that was solid, right? Like the explanation she gave was great for her purposes, right? But if I'm Sheridan and I'm hearing you say this, that's crazy. Like, I don't know.
And the slow process that she's taking, you could see it in her eyes, like she's trying to form this kind of explanation, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Sheridan doesn't clock that. Like she's kind of, it seems like she's manipulating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she absolutely is manipulating. Yeah. Oh,
but she doesn't clock that. Like I thought Sheridan was a lot smarter than that.
It's interesting too because you would think that Sheridan would be more suspicious of Beth, right, than she actually is. Like Beth was about to marry Luis. You think she's happy that you're back? Right? Like y'all are whether you like it or not, y'all are enemies. Period. Yeah. Period. You're at the very least you're rivals. Go for it.
It's not like Harmony is filled with these like good, good-mannered citizens. Like everybody may have some ulterior motives, bad motives, or whatever. I don't know why they're giving them all this grace that like they wouldn't have any ulterior motive or anything.
Yeah, and in particular, Beth.
Yeah.
In this situation, right? Like any reasonable person, even if you like Beth as a person, say you think Beth is a lovely woman. She's, you think she's a kind woman. You have no reason to believe she has any ill, negative intent towards you. You would still understand that she was about to marry Luis. Therefore, she is in love with Luis.
Yeah.
You would still understand that because she loves Luis and is in love with Luis, that makes you her rival and or a threat to her, right? Regardless of how you feel about her as a person, you have to understand that she has her own motives as a person.
Uh-huh.
And what does she have to gain by you telling you, no, you can't let Luis stop your wedding to Antonio. You have to go through with this wedding to Antonio. What does she have to gain by that? She gets to gain Luis. Obviously, it's obvious. But they have like nerfed Sheridan, kneecapped Sheridan as a character so fucking bad.
I know.
It's like disgusting, actually.
Yeah.
So she's ready to go through the ceremony. Before the ceremony, she says to Luis, "Please understand why I have to do this. There's no other choice unless you want Antonio's death on our hands." I hate this rhetoric. I hate this dialogue. Oh my God, this illogical line of thinking. Well, please understand why I have to marry your brother. There's no other choice. What do you mean there's no other choice? You can just say no. Yeah. It's not, it wouldn't be a shock. That's not a shocking revelation to that man to say to him, I don't want to get married like this. That's not shocking. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I know I said I wasn't going to harp on it and keep saying it, but it just bears repeating.
This is just the alternate universe because this is not based in reality at all.
I hate it. I hate this so much. So she goes up to the altar with Antonio. They're going to start the ceremony. And when it gets to the, does anybody here object moment, basically, Luis again interjects and says, "You can't marry Sheridan because she doesn't love you." Hello? He says that to Antonio. He interjects, "I have something to say. You can't marry Antonio. You can't marry Sheridan because she doesn't love you. She loves," and before he can get it out, Antonio cuts him off and says, "Oh, ha ha ha, Luis, you're so funny. This is just a practical joke." What the fuck kind of joke is that? That's not a joke. He's being purposefully obtuse. He can see. Nobody's going to tell me otherwise. Nobody. At this point, after that, I'm not giving Antonio the benefit of the doubt anymore at all. He knows. He doesn't know exactly what's going on. There's no way he knows exactly what's going on, but he definitely knows there's something going on here. He definitely knows. He can. First of all, everybody's uncomfortable. Everybody looks like they're going to throw up. Sheridan constantly looks like she's going to throw up. He does not care about how she feels about anything.
Yeah. He's in denial. He's in denial, He just wants her at all costs.
Yeah, I can't even say he's in denial because I think that he is purposefully being obtuse. I think he's purposefully and staying willfully ignorant. I do. I think that he's doing it on purpose. He's like, as long as I don't let them tell me whatever the truth is, then it doesn't matter. He's doing the Simone thing. Right? You have to say the words. Now, the difference with Simone is nobody's even attempting to say the words. With Antonio, Luis is trying to tell him, and he refuses to let him.
Yeah.
He refuses to let him say it. And that right there solidified Antonio as the worst character for me. So I was going back and forth between him and TC, to be honest. But yeah, the fact that he cut Luis off when Luis said, you can't marry Sheridan because she doesn't love you. And then you said it was just a practical joke, a prank?
Yeah.
No. First of all, we don't play like that. First of all, you and I aren't even close enough anymore that we can play like that. So
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
They definitely don't have that rapport. So I don't know why he would even think that.
They barely have a relationship. They just got back on speaking terms. Right.
If anything, they've been fighting more than, any type of bonding.
Absolutely. And so Antonio tells him, like, oh, you're so funny. Don't think I won't remember this when it comes to your wedding day. Like, shut the fuck up and listen to what I'm trying to tell you. Well, anyway, he just goes right back to getting married to Sheridan. And Luis says, I can't let my brother marry Sheridan. And then Liz to the rescue. Liz passes out. She drops, and it was very convincing. It looked like something was really wrong with her. And so that stops everything, stops the ceremony in its tracks. They get Liz a doctor. He says that she may be having an appendicitis and sends her to the hospital. And so they all go to the hospital. But before they go, Liz tells everybody except Antonio she's fine. She's like, I faked it. I actually don't even have my appendix anymore. That's how I knew what the symptoms were. And so they go to the hospital and she gets the all clear from the doctor eventually. And Antonio is like, well, now time to go back and get married again. Oh my God.
Yeah, he says like, we were just 3 words away from actually being man and wife. So we might as well.
Yeah. We might as well. It won't take us long. And I want to say I do to you before midnight tonight. I want you to be my wife. And so Luis says to him, no, you can't do that. And this is when Antonio is like, starts to question Luis's motives. He's like, why? Do you have a problem with me and Sheridan getting married? And Luis is about to speak up when Liz kind of speaks for Liz speaks for Luis. And she's like, well, he just doesn't want you to, disappoint your mama and about your family and blah, blah, blah. The same old excuse. Like they're going to hate missing out on the wedding and everything. But he's like, I already told y'all. And to be fair to Antonio, actually, he has told them multiple times at this point, like, this is what it is. I know that the family's going to be upset, but we're going to address that when we get back. And the fact that he does have to keep saying that, I would be annoyed if I were him. That's like the only little bit of piece of grace I'm going to give Antonio this week or ever again.
Yeah, that's the only one.
But that was actually even annoying to me that they keep making the same argument and he keeps giving them the same answer back. And it's like, it's not, switch it up, babes. Give us something else. So anyway, he's like, he just decides to keep moving forward. Have you ever watched Attack on Titan?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind. There's a character named Eren Yeager in Attack on Titan, and his whole thing is like, keep moving forward. And I don't want to ruin it because I want to tell y'all right now, Attack on Titan is one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time.
Oh, wow.
It is so good. And particularly if you like anime, you should definitely watch it. But even if you don't like anime, it is just an incredibly written and beautifully animated story. And it's heart-wrenching, it's insane, it's crazy. I highly, highly suggest you watch it. It is gruesome, it is gory, so just be ready for that if you're gonna watch it. But the story outweighs the gruesomeness of it. But anyway, Aaron's always talking about keep moving forward. And when Antonio said, like, we're gonna keep on keeping on, I'm still gonna do this, I was like, God, he's so Eren Yeager coded. But nobody's gonna get the reference. If you get the reference, send me a message and be like, I get it, you're so right, Latara. It'll make my day. Anyway, he's like, we're just gonna go back to the justice of peace and get married and blah blah blah. Then Liz says at one point, she's like, it's going to take an act of God to stop this wedding. And just at that moment, Luis gets a phone call from Sam telling him that Whitney and Julian and Ethan are all fucked up in the elevator shaft at Crane. And so this ends the discussion, right, of getting married today, because they all run off to the accident, the scene of the accident. At Crane Industries. So, so before we finish with this, I just want to note that Beth and Liz are left alone at the hospital because Luis, Antonio, and Sheridan all rush off to Crane. Antonio says to Beth, like, could you please make sure Liz makes it to her hotel okay? And Beth agrees. So these two are left alone. And Beth says to Liz, I see how you look at Antonio. You really still love him. You really care for him. And Liz basically says the same thing to her. Is like, yeah, this must be very tough for you with Luis and with Sheridan being back. You must be really having a hard time with all of this. And Beth is like, well, I see our predicaments being basically the same. Like if Sheridan hadn't come back, Luis and I would be together. And if Sheridan hadn't shown up in your life, maybe you and Antonio would have had it almost seems like she's trying to needle Liz into linking up with her to kill Sheridan.
The joint forces.
Like that's what it seemed like to me. Like she was like feeling Liz out to see if she would maybe murder Sheridan with her. She's like, if we got rid of Sheridan, all of our problems would be solved.
And what I like about this is these are two characters, unlike Luis, Antonio, and Sheridan, that they're very self-aware and just aware of everything that's going on. They're very perceptive. The rest of them are just like
they're very Beth's. I will say that Beth's like vision is more outward than inward, right? So she's looking at Luis and this whole situation and trying to figure out, of course, how she can have Luis for herself, which frankly, I'm not mad at. I want to be clear. The fact that Beth is trying to get Sheridan away from Luis and have her married off to Antonio does not bother me one bit, because frankly, Luis kind of deserves it for having her around. Like, leave that lady alone. Because what do you expect her to do? What, she's supposed to be in love with you and watch you be in love with another woman and be okay with that and keep making muffins for y'all every day? No. Of course she's trying to get back together with you. Of course she is, right? And I want to be clear, Beth has not once said to Luis, well, I'm not trying to get back together with you. I don't want to. She hasn't said that to him. She just is available. She's there. Right? She's there. And so he should see that there's something a little bit deeper with Beth and leave her alone. He should leave her alone, to be honest. He shouldn't even bother roping her into anything. He should tell Antonio that they broke up and they're not going to be getting married and leave it at that. Even if he doesn't want to tell him, me and Sheridan are together, whatever, and that's why we broke up, just tell him, Beth and I aren't going to happen. It's not going to work. And then Antonio will stop looping Beth into shit.
Yeah.
But I'm not mad. I want to be clear. Right now, I'm not mad at Beth at all.
Nah, me either.
I'm not mad at Beth.
Not yet.
At all. It's like, you're the one that's got this bitch around. Y'all the ones keep bringing her and then inviting her to shit. I don't know. Of course she wants you. She just broke up with, or you just broke with her. Oh my God. You just broke up with her like 2 days ago. So she's not over it. She's not over it. I can't expect Beth to be over it in 2 days.
Especially after you broke her heart previously.
Exactly. They have years of history together. So whatever. But I'm not mad at Beth yet. I will get there. I'm not mad at her yet. I didn't love when she poked the holes in Sheridan's diaphragm, but other than that, no. Like, I got why she did it. I just think it's such a violation.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Like, I don't know that. I don't know.
For soap operas, for soap operas, I mean, that's the most
It's
diabolical
tame.
thing.
It's tame for soap operas for sure. Especially compared to what she does soon.
Yeah,
where we're headed with Beth, yes, poking the holes in the diaphragm was tame for Beth.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're gonna move on. I've talked about this enough. I ranted about this enough. Going on to what did I say was next? Troubled marriages. All right. Yeah. So going on to what's going on with Sam and Grace and David and Ivy and all this bullshit over here. Y'all, I'm gonna say this. Sheridan was getting on my nerves this week. Grace has been getting on my nerves, but she reached a new level this week. She really reached a new oh my gosh, she really reached a new level of shitty this week. So let's pop in. Let's pop in and see what's going on at the Bennett's in the Bennett home. So remember, last week, David showed up with the annulment papers and Sam just flew off the handle, assuming that David had written in the annulment papers that he still loved Grace and that meant they wouldn't be able to get the annulment. So he started to beat up David. That's where we are. That's where we pick up this week. He is turning David every which way but loose. Do you hear me? He is beating that man's ass. And then the Russells randomly show up and TC, of all people, is pulling Sam off of David, which I don't know. I don't know. TC, you would think he would jump in. Like, but
yeah. But he kind of like pushes Sam away pretty forcefully, like grabs him pretty forcefully.
He does.
Like, I mean, Sam is in his right. I mean, I don't know, to attack him, like ruining his marriage like that. Listen. I mean, it's not, violence is not good, yes, but this guy was purposely trying to break up his marriage. You know?
Not only that, but Sam, we have to remember, Sam has been sleeping on the couch for we don't know how long. Yeah. He's not been sleeping with his wife. This man is sexually frustrated. We have to remember that. You have to keep that in mind. This man is dying to get some. And he had to get his sexual frustration out some kind of way. And David is the instrument, right, of his own little torture. So yeah, TC comes in, pulls Sam off, but then Sam breaks free again. It was great. I loved it. Breaks free again and just starts beating David up again. And then Grace and Eve are like, well, what did David even say in the papers? They pick up the papers off the floor because they've been strewn across the floor because he got attacked before he could say anything. And she picks him up and she's like, Sam, he didn't say it. He didn't say he loved me. He said he didn't love me. Stop it. Stop this. Everything settles down. TC suggests that he and Sam go for a walk. Sam apologizes to David, like, man, I thought I'm sorry, man. My bad. TC suggests that he and Sam go for a walk, so they go out to get some air. Grace is very upset with Sam. And then Grace and Eve have a conversation. I think David goes to like get cleaned up or something. Grace and Eve have an interesting conversation. These women are turning into frenemies. Not friends, definitely not best friends. Where Eve basically accuses Grace of, she said, being shaken up. She's like, you're very shaken up, Grace. And I think maybe it's because David said he doesn't love you anymore. I was like, Eve.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, and Eve questions Grace's real feelings. She says, I think maybe you like the excitement of having two guys fighting over you. And then she brings up, she's like, I remember you telling me about that sexy vision that you and David shared at the mansion last night. And maybe you're upset because he said that he doesn't love you anymore and you don't like that. And you like the excitement of having two men fighting over you. And then Grease, Lord Jesus. And then Grace says that it's nothing, that vision was nothing. It was just a fantasy. And then she turns the conversation onto Eve and she says, and why are you so intent on trying to convince me that I have feelings for someone else? Is it maybe because you're just a little bit excited that Julian never has gotten over his feelings for you? And Eve gets pissed at Grace, actually. She's like, that was a terrible thing to say. And I don't want or need any attention from Julian. I would be thrilled if I never had to see him again in my life. And you know perfectly well how that man almost ruined my entire life. Which, you know what, actually is fair enough. Like that, because Eve has some like legitimate trauma when it comes to Julian, and Grace doesn't remember. I guess that in and of itself can be kind of considered a trauma, that this man came into her life and he says that he was married to her and they had this baby, but she doesn't remember it. So that can be, I'm sure that's very painful to kind of, but you also don't remember it. So it's like, is it that painful? So I don't know. I feel like it's complicated.
Yeah, you're not tied to it.
Yeah, so I don't know. But so I did think that Grace bringing up Eve's thing was a little bit worse, but they both were going kind of tit for tat with each other. Yeah, but then Grace tries to call a truce, saying, why don't we just call it even? All right. I won't suspect you of harboring feelings for Julian if you lay off about me thinking of David as anything more than just a friend. But Eve is like, no. She's like, no truce. She says, no, the difference is that legally David is more than a friend. So just tell me the truth, Grace. When you think of your husband, who do you think of, David or Sam? And Grace answers, Sam, of course. But then this is when Father Lonigan shows up, right? So Father Lonigan shows up. Sam and TC come back, and then Father Lonigan tells Sam and Grace tells Grace and David, not Sam, Grace and David, that he needs their oaths. He says, I'll need you to swear before me and the Father Almighty that your written responses are the truth, so help you God. So everybody has to, both Grace and David have to make a verbal declaration that everything in the papers is true. And he says, I'll start with you, Grace. He says, do you swear before God Almighty and your immortal soul that the answers you put down on the annulment papers are an absolute expression of your true feelings and beliefs? And she very meekly is like, yes. And then he turns to David and says, do you, David Hastings, blah, 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 is this your true expression of your feelings? Same thing. And before David can even answer, before he can get any words out, Grace says, David, tell the truth. Don't lie. Be honest. Don't swear to anything unless you believe it with your entire heart and soul. She is so fucking annoying.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
She's nasty so word. Annoying. And Sam's with me. Sam is aggravated with this.
A good performance by him.
Oh yeah, he was fed up. He was fed the fuck up.
Yeah. Because
she says, be honest. Don't answer anything unless you believe it with your entire heart and soul. Okay. And Sam is like, Grace, what are you doing? This is the final step in dissolving our marriage. Dissolving your marriage to this man so that we can get married and get back to our regular life. Like, we need to get on. We need to get past this point in our life. Why are you trying to stop him from getting the annulment? And Grace says, well, we're talking about David's soul. If he lies, he will be committing a mortal sin, and that will haunt him for eternity. Please don't let anyone pressure you, David. Don't let anyone pressure you into making a terrible mistake. Tell the truth, whatever it is. Oh my God. Grace, what the fuck, Grace?
So
Grace,
nagging. Oh, this goody two-shoe shit, like, come
bullshit.
on.
It's bullshit. No. It's exactly what Eve said. She has feelings for David. She likes the fact that David and Sam are fighting over her. She likes the fact and Eric has said this a number of times. she also likes that she can get kind of her get back on Sam with his Sam and Ivy thing. She likes that now she has another man, you know, on the side too, who's in love with her, and that they have a past together, and that now that she can kind of like put that in Sam's face too. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe Grace really is so concerned about David's immortal soul that and listen, if he does lie, he can go to confession. Can he not just go to confession? Yeah. Yes, he can.
Exactly. I think
this is not the end all be all here. Go for it. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think it's her just controlling the narrative. You know, like she wants David. She wants to have some kind of relationship with him. So she's just kind of securing him. Yeah, that's how I feel like.
I agree. She wants.
He had no business.
She wants David to stick around. That's basically the long and short of it. Is she wants David here, and she does have feelings for David, which we found out. So, Sam's pissed. Grace says, you know, this is about his soul, and tells David, tell the truth, whatever it is. David says, I can't lie. I can't lie to Father Lonigan. I can't lie to God, and I can't lie to you. I know the annulment is important to you, but I know how I feel in my heart. I love you. So he tells her he loves her. Father Lonigan is so dramatic here. This was hilarious to me. He says, David's admission of love changes everything. And he says that he's unable to accept the annulment papers, and that in the eyes of God, they are still married. And then he rips apart the annulment papers and leaves. Sam is pissed. Sam is pissed off. And Grace says, Sam, don't be angry with David. All he did was tell the truth. But then Sam turns to her and says, I don't blame David, Grace. I blame you. And she's like, what? Me? Why? What do you mean, why? He says, you did this. This is all on your shoulders. All of it. Hell yeah, Sam. Tell her the truth. And she's so confused why he's upset. She's like, why are you so upset?
She cut off David from speaking on his own volition and said all of that and thinks she's like blameless.
And can't fathom why Sam is upset. Yeah. Can't understand why Sam is upset. Grace,
he hasn't gotten laid in like 35 days or whatever.
Yeah, not only that, like, he's not been able to sleep with his wife, but not only that, like, he's sleeping on a couch. Yeah. I love my couch. I can't sleep on it for more than 3 or 4 hours. I have to go get in my bed. You know what I mean? Like, I can't sleep on a couch. That in and of itself means he's probably not getting very good sleep, right? So he's sexually frustrated. He's also exhausted because he's not getting great sleep. And then on top of that, he's been dealing with this in truthfully the most graceful way possible for a while. It's been several months. I don't know how long this has been going on, really. But it's been several months at this point that he has been dealing with David being in their lives. Just this revelation that his wife had a husband and another child. And so it's a lot of emotion. And he thought that he was finally to the end of this, and Grace put a stop to it. Yeah, you'd be pissed too, right? So he's rightfully pissed off. I wholeheartedly 100% stand behind Sam on everything he says.
And the thing that I don't like about this goes against everything Grace kind of stood for, like the whole structure of the family. Like she kind of turned a blind eye to her daughters, to her son, all of that stuff. Because remember, they have troubled issues. She thinks Kay's troubled issues is because of Sam and her and Sam's marriage.
Yeah, so living in sin or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so why put a stop to the whole notion of the family thing by...
Right. So you were actually on the verge of fixing what you thought was broken, right? Like you were on the verge of going in the direction of like you and your husband in like a holy matrimony, whatever, that you think for some whatever reason is going to put your daughter back on the right track. But then you put a stop to it. Yeah.
Simply, she's sabotaging her.
She's sabotaging her whole family. She's blowing up her life.
Exactly.
Grace, I don't know. This is purely conjecture. This is just me shooting the shit. Grace, it seems, wants to blow up her life. Maybe she was bored.
She's bored.
Maybe, and then this exciting thing came into her life and she's like, I want to explore that further. It seems like Grace wants to blow up her life. She just doesn't have the guts to actually pull the trigger. Right. And say that to Sam, like, I need time to explore my time with David. I don't think that we should, because she's already kind of saying it, but she's not going all the way. Right. The whole, like, we shouldn't be sleeping together. We shouldn't be sleeping in the same bed together. Like, when she had that conversation with him, I do believe that the foundation of that conversation had nothing to do with Kay. It has everything to do with the fact that she wants to explore something with David, but doesn't have the guts to say it to Sam.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So yeah, she's blonde. She does these little things and that are big things, obviously, but she does these things and she thinks of them as small things, like, oh, David's just telling the truth. I just think David should tell the truth, and it's about his immortal soul, and it doesn't mean anything. Of course it means something. Of course. What? So anyway, Sam is pissed off. She's confused why he's so upset. They argue back and forth for a little while. Grace says that she told David to tell the truth to protect his soul. And she says, Sam, you've never talked this harshly to me before, because when he says, I told him to tell the truth to protect his soul, Sam says, that's bull. Like, oh, she's clutching her pearls. Sam, you've never talked so harshly to me before. And then Eve and TC try to interject, and they're like, no, Sam's just frustrated. And Sam's like, frustrated? I'm not frustrated. I'm mad as hell. Yes, Sam, tell him how you really feel. Exactly. And then David comes back and he tries to apologize to Sam. And Sam actually looks at him and says, actually, David, I don't blame you. I blame Grace. David says, what? And then he walks away. That was funny to me. He just goes, what? And then he walks away.
Because he won. He's triumphed right there.
That was so funny to me. So he looks at Grace. Sam looks at Grace and says, because Grace is like, you don't believe me? You don't believe that I did this to save David's soul? And he looks at her and says, I'd like to believe you, Grace. I would like to believe that you don't want David lying to God because you're concerned about his soul. That's what the Grace I know would do, the Grace that always puts others first. But a part of me wonders if you're still thinking about that vision you had and I honestly, I wish he hadn't brought up the vision, because since you had one with Ivy, like, it was very easy for her to turn that on him. But whatever, he did. He brought it up. He says, part of me is wonders if you're still thinking about that vision you had and about about you and David being married, and about the real life kiss that the two of you shared. He says, I wonder if you didn't want this annulment to happen. Sorry. He says, I wonder if you didn't want this annulment to happen because you're not ready to let David go, because you have feelings for him. And then Grace turns things around on him and brings up his vision with Ivy, right? And TC and Eve tell them, y'all are getting too heated. They try to kind of calm them both down. But Sam says, no, this all has to come out once and for all. And he says to Grace, I think a part of you wanted to hear David say that he still loves you, because deep down, you didn't want to go through with the annulment. And she says, you don't believe me? And he says, look me in the eye, Grace, and you tell me that you don't have any feelings for him, that part of you doesn't love him. And he says, I want the truth once and for all. Tell me in your heart of hearts that you don't feel any love for David. And then Grace says, I can't, Sam. I can't tell you that I don't have any feelings for David. I was married to him once, but you don't remember that. I was married to him once, and I don't remember being his wife, but we did have a child together. David is John's father, just like Ivy is Ethan's mother. Again, these aren't the same thing. One, even though she doesn't know it, John isn't really her son, but I digress. That doesn't matter here, because she does think that he is her son. But these things are still not the same, because you do not remember this man. You didn't know this child before a few weeks ago. Like, y'all, I don't want to make it sound flippant. It is horrible. It really is. But there's simply no way that you have a deep emotional connection to that child.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just not. And even with Sam and Ethan, once Sam found out that Ethan was his son, he still he grappled with that. He was like, man, I really fucking hated him.
Yeah.
You know? He's like, but I guess he's not so bad. And it took them a while to even become somewhat close to the point where Ethan's calling him dad or anything, you know? So I just, whatever. I feel like it would take some time for you to really grow an emotional attachment, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I've never been a mother. I do not know. So anyway, she brings up the Ivy stuff. Then Eve says to TC, this has gone too far. This is going too far. I'm going to go to the car and get a mild sedative for Grace. Maybe you can calm Sam down.
You want a sedative or something to quiet your nerves?
She does a sedative. She says something about sedatives like at least 3 times in these episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. But yeah, she's like, I'm going to go get a sedative for Grace. Which just cracked me up. And then Sam and Grace just continue to argue back and forth about David and Ivy. And when Eve goes outside to get her doctor bag from the car, she runs into Ivy, who's creeping outside in the window, right?
Eavesdropping.
Yeah, she's standing. She's sitting outside the window, thrilled, watching everything that's going on inside because her scheme is working, right? And then Eve tells her, oh, you had everything to do with this. You know what? I'm going to blow your whole plan sky high. I'm about to ruin everything. I'm going to take you in there and you're going to tell you're going to tell Sam and Grace exactly what's going on. Ivy tries to threaten her like, well, no, I'm not going to do that because if I do that, then I'm going to have to also tell them about your secrets and how you faked the DNA test for John and blah, blah, blah. And Eve says, I don't care about me right now. I only care about Grace and Sam, and we're going to go and rectify this. Then she rolls her inside and says like, Ivy has something she wants to tell you all. Ivy, go ahead. But Ivy doesn't get a chance to get it out. And I will say, if Eve really truly wants to blow Ivy sky high and doesn't give a shit about herself, she could have just done it herself. She could have just done it, right? But she didn't. She didn't, because the truth is, Eve, you don't want your secrets coming out, regardless of Sam and Grace's marriage. You don't want those secrets coming out. So anyway, Ivy doesn't get a chance to say really anything because Sam gets a phone call from Teresa. Yeah, Teresa about Ethan and Whitney and they don't say Julian, but Ethan and Whitney being stuck on the elevator, because we'll talk about how Ethan ended up down there very shortly. So they all run off to Crane to mount a rescue. So let's go over to not trouble marriages, these other people, fated couples, and talk about what's going on with them. All right, so now we're moving on to our fated couples, and it's really mostly Chad and Whitney, and actually is really mostly Whitney and Julian like this week. So let's talk about it. So we pick up and Whitney has run out of Teresa's office in tears because last week she gave a very impassioned speech about, when do I get to be happy? When do I get to do the things that I want to do? What about me? I live my life for all these other people, but I have to give up the one thing I really wanted, which was Chad, basically. And Chad and Ethan come in on the tail end of this. She is embarrassed, and so she runs out. She runs and gets on the elevator. As soon as she gets on the elevator, the maintenance man, Roy, comes and puts up a out of order sign, right? And so she gets stuck on the elevator with Julian. We find out Julian's on the elevator as well. Chad is confused why Whitney's so upset. And Teresa says to him, well, she's upset because she loves you. And he says, then why won't she stand up for us? I know you guys mean well, because Ethan's been trying to tell him the same thing, like, you need to fight for Whitney, and she's upset. You need to see where she's coming from and how hurtful and painful this is for her too. And he says, I see where you're coming from, but I think it's too late for me and Whitney. Ethan tells Chad that Ethan's like, you can't just give up on her. You can't give up on love. You need to cut her some slack. And he says, there's nothing in the world that could keep me from fighting for the woman I love. Saying all this in front of Teresa. Show y'all my Teresa shirt today. I got on my new Teresa shirt.
Oh, that one's nice too.
Yeah, I actually really love this picture of her. But anyway, and it says Team Teresa at the bottom. So yeah. Nice. Anyway, I haven't put this up on the store yet, but I am going to do it. I'm going to put this on the store. I'm going to put the Gwen shirts on the store. There's something else I'm supposed to.
Yeah, I did look the other day. I didn't see
they're not up.
The Gwen shirts. Yeah,
they're not up. They will be. I'm gonna move the Team Gwen, because I don't think I like where I put it, so I think I might do it the same way I did this one. So anyway, I am gonna put those up. So I will let y'all know when they're up on the shop. Anyway, Teresa. He's saying all of this stuff in front of Teresa, saying, there's nothing in the world that could keep me from fighting for the woman I love. That's interesting. You didn't fight for Teresa. I'm sorry. I know that he has said over and over again, I love Teresa, but love isn't enough. But now I feel like he's saying differently. I feel like he's saying the opposite, that love is the only thing that matters and you have to fight for love. So the fact that he's saying that in front of Teresa just doesn't feel like a smart thing to do. Yeah. But whatever. And then he's
doesn't it go to a flashback and then she looks at the ring?
Yes, that's exactly. Yeah. So Teresa, we get a flashback of Teresa basically saying the exact same thing that Ethan is saying, like, you can't give up on love, and I have to fight for my love. And then we also see her like with the ring, like we're reminded that she has this ring that she found in his pocket, right? And that she thinks that he's going to propose to her, which is nonsense. So Teresa says to Ethan, oh, Ethan, I know that you would never let anything keep you from spending the rest of your life with the woman that you love. And Ethan turns around to her like he almost looks confused, confounded. He's like, what? And he's like, yeah, well, I try not to, I try not to keep anything keep me from love. And then he turns back to Chad and is like, anyway, Chad, real love doesn't come around enough for you to be able to just walk away from it. You can't just walk away from real love, Chad. But you told us that you had real love with Teresa and you walked away from that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They kind of leaned into that for comedic effect, because I think the music drops out of that, right? And he was like, anyway, right?
Yeah, it was. I don't remember exactly, but it definitely was comical. Definitely made me laugh the way she said that, and he kind of looks back at her, and then he goes back to Chad like, anyway, you can't give up on love, Chad.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Whitney is stuck on the elevator with Julian. And he's like, I told you not to press those buttons like that. Like, we're stuck. It seems we're stuck thanks to you. Like, blames it on her, even though we find out that the reason this elevator, apparently both elevators are out of service, by the way. Mm-hmm. And we find out that Roy, the maintenance man, has been complaining to Mr. Crane, which I assume is Julian, and telling him like, hey, we got to do something about these elevators. But he didn't want to spend the money on it, which is so stupid, actually. Like, I don't know. I hate that that's part of the plot, that Julian was too cheap to make sure the elevators were working. The elevators that he uses on a daily basis are working correctly and not like dangerous death traps. And because I just don't feel that doesn't track for Julian for me. Like, it would be different if he didn't work in this office, right? Like if he wasn't here, he's like, well, I don't care if the elevators work or not. I don't ride them, right? Like but he gets on he uses these elevators on a daily basis. It does not track for me that a person came up to Julian Crane and told him, hey, the elevators need maintenance or else like they're gonna become death traps. And he was like, oh no, we can't spend the money on that. He's rich and he doesn't want to die. One thing we know about Julian is he definitely does not want to die, right? But anyway, that's the story. So we're sticking to it. Julian was too cheap to fix the elevators, and now the wires are snapping. Like these elevators are in terrible shape. And I also want to state that, and maybe I could be wrong about this, I don't know, but I'm almost certain that there are people whose entire job is to inspect elevators, right? And make sure that the elevators are up to code at all times, right? Like over the course of the year, your elevators get checked.
I could speak to that because like I work maintenance at a middle school, and I meet up with the elevator guy every month and he does his daily checks, and I escort him to the 3 elevators we have, you know?
Yep. See, there you go. Thank you for providing your expert opinion on it. Yes. On the matter. Yes. There's people whose jobs it is to check elevators because elevators are extremely dangerous. Yeah.
And in Harmony, I would doubt there would be some crazy high rise where you would even need an elevator.
Oh my God.
The highest floor would be 3, right?
This building apparently, because they have to go down to floor 17. So this building has like at least 20 floors in it, right? Yeah. Like 30 floors. And when we see the vision of or the shot of the elevator shaft, it is very long, right? We're meant to believe that this is some kind of skyscraper, and they're on the top floor of this skyscraper. But I agree with you. I thought the same thing. I was like, how tall can this building be? It's in Harmony. Like Harmony is this tiny little town where they only have one seafood restaurant and a book cafe. Like they have to get their coffee and books at the same fucking place. Like I don't even know if they have a library. So the fact that they have like, I don't know, what's that Freedom Tower, a building as tall as the Freedom Tower in there.
How many businesses would be taking up space there? Like that's crazy.
Yeah,
there's not much going on in Harmony.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Unless, which I don't. No, never mind. I can't say that. They're definitely in Harmony. I was about to say unless Crane headquarters is like in Boston or a big city or something they all drove in, but that doesn't make sense because then why is Sam the person that they have to call to for help, right?
And it would take him an hour to get to from Boston.
So whatever, we're going with it. That Harmony is a tiny town with one giant skyscraper in it. For whatever reason, weird town, with just a weird town all around. Whitney and Julian are stuck on the elevator. Julian calls Teresa because Whitney says, well, Teresa's in her office. And so you could call her and she can get someone to help us. So Julian calls Teresa and Whitney tells him, like, don't tell her I'm on here for whatever reason. I don't know. Whatever. So he tries to call her, but they get disconnected because the elevator begins to like fall. Like the wires are snapping. And so the elevator is becoming less steady, right? Like it's like tilting and kind of lurching downward. And when that happens, he drops the phone. They get disconnected. Eventually he manages to call her back, explains that he's on the elevator and he's stuck and it's rocking. Whitney screams. And so Teresa is tipped off that Whitney is there as well. Now when Whitney starts to panic because he hangs up and Teresa's like, oh my God, we have to do something. So Teresa, Ethan and Chad all kind of run out to the lobby and try to figure out what's going on. When Whitney starts to panic, Julian tries to comfort her and keep her calm. He like starts to like breathe. He's like, you just have to breathe through it. And they start taking deep breaths and stuff. So it was nice to see Julian. It's so nice. They have to do so much to redeem Julian when you think about all the horrible shit that he's done. So it is nice to actually see him and in an extended period of time, like think about somebody other than himself, right? Like Julian's on this elevator too is dangerous for him. He might die, but his focus is really on Whitney. Once she starts getting scared, his focus is really on just trying to keep her calm, trying to comfort her, and he does a pretty good job at it, really.
And I feel like this is a good way of showing the depth of the love he has for Eve. You know what I mean? Helping. It's beyond like that kind of sexual tryst that they were promoting earlier on with the flashbacks and stuff like that, the pictures. I thought it was good to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love to see some depth to Julian. Anytime I can see some depth in Julian, I love to see it because Ben Masters, one, plays it so beautifully and so well. But also it's nice it's just nice to see some real character development in this show. It is. We don't see a lot of it. We don't. So it's nice to see him actually changing as a person. So anyway, the maintenance man, Roy, shows up and he it finds out that there are people on the elevator. He's like, nobody's supposed to be on that elevator. It's broken, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, well, they got on there before you put the sign up. And maybe somebody should have stood here if it was that bad.
Yeah, that's what I said. Why is anybody like standing guard?
Yeah, if it's that bad, somebody should have been standing here to make sure nobody got on the elevators until we were able to turn the power to the elevators off.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing. The elevator guy would shut it off. There's a way to shut it off right then and there.
See?
You would not just walk away and just leave it that way.
But hey, it's passions. And Roy, much like everybody in this town, is terrible at his job. He's bad at his job. He's like, oh, well, I've got some rope. I'll go get the rope. He comes back with some rope. And he's going to lower himself down into the elevator shaft to try and mount a rescue. But then he's like, well, there's electrical wires everywhere. I might get electrocuted. We have to kill the power first. And so he goes to kill the power. And instead of waiting for Roy to come back, Ethan decides that he's going to go on and go down the elevator shaft because he's been rock climbing since college. Because rock climbing and lowering yourself down into an elevator shaft with live fucking wires, live exposed wires are the same thing. Are the exact same conditions. And so he starts climbing down. Meanwhile, on the elevator, Whitney is being comforted by Julian, and she talks about her regrets, that she's been doing everything for her family and hurting the one person that she really loves. Not that she doesn't love her parents. I said that in a way that sounds like she's doing stuff for them, but but you know what I mean. She's hurt the person that she loves romantically, right, with all her heart. Yeah. And Julian says to her that he did the same thing when he was younger, that he did things because his father wanted him to do them. And he says to her, don't make the same mistake I made. You need to follow your heart and let it lead you to love. Julian. Yeah. And then he says, I don't know when or how, but I'm certain we're going to get out of here alive and unscathed, and you won't lose the chance to have the life that you want and the love that you want. You won't, he says, you won't make the same mistakes I did. You won't let your father decide your destiny. You will. You'll listen to your heart. You'll follow it. All your dreams will come true. What a good. Oh, come on, Julian. Where's my applause? Do I have applause? Definitely. That's my guy right there. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
He's so comforting at every turn because she's often like frantic, and he just has to calm her down at every instance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He does a good job.
Yeah. So they're having this conversation. Meanwhile, Ethan is like tries to rescue them, like tries to mount a rescue, but ends up needing to be rescued because of course he gets electrocuted and falls on top of the elevator that's already hanging precariously.
Yeah.
Right?
He's worse than they are.
Yeah. So he falls. He needs to be rescued because he's unconscious on top of a elevator that's hanging on by a thread, right? So Ethan, obviously, when he fell, there was a loud sound on the top of the elevator. So inside, Whitney and Julian wonder like what that sound was. Whitney starts to kind of freak out again, thinking that it's, the elevator is going to fall. It's something bad, right? Which, of course, you would think is something horrible happening because it is something horrible happening, but they don't realize it's a body that has like fallen on top of the elevator. And Julian tells her to calm down. He's like, we're not going to die. He says, cranes don't die in freak accidents. And you're with me. And she says, oh, yeah, well, you were shot and fell into a vat of boiling tuna. And then he says, I didn't die, did I? Yeah. I loved that little exchange. It's like, cranes don't die in freak accidents. And she's like, yeah, what about when you got shot and fell in all of that boiling tuna? Well, I didn't die, did I? He got me there. Got me there. So then Whitney asks Julian about this love of his life that he was talking about. And he mentions that she was a singer, right? And Whitney mentions that, Chad wants me to sing and he thinks I'm pretty good. And she says, I don't even know where I got my voice from. Nobody in my family sings. And of course, Julian knows that Eve sings. And he lets slip. He's like, you got your voice from your mother. Cause he's like lost in thought at that point, thinking about reminiscing about Eve singing. And he's like, you got your voice from your mother. And she's like, my mother hates singing. What a thing to hate. Like,
I know.
Mom, why do you hate singing so much? My mother hates singing. She can barely handle me singing in the church choir, let alone trying to sing professionally. And then they talk about TC for a little bit. She talks about how both of her parents are wonderful because Julian says, yes, you have a wonderful mother. You don't know how lucky you are to have like such a wonderful mother. And she's like, well, my dad's pretty great too. And so they talk about TC, and Whitney had kind of warmed up to Julian, but the minute they start to talk about TC, she remembers like all these horrible things that her dad has told him or told her about him, that he's the one that ruined his career. And then she also thinks about what he had done to Teresa. Yeah. And so she's like, you almost had me. I know you're a bad guy, basically. And he tells her, I admit that I've made mistakes and I've done some things that I'm not proud of, but people can change. And he says, when everyone thought that I was dead, it affected me in ways that surprised even me. And he tells her, I've changed, Whitney. I'm not the same Julian Crane I used to be. He's not. Yeah. He's not. I can agree with that.
Yeah, his vulnerability is what really softens her, you know what I mean? Like, the wall comes down every time he speaks truth to, like, his situation.
And he's being honest with her, and he's being open, he's being vulnerable, and he's being very kind to her. Yeah. It is at this point that the Bennetts and the Russells and Ivy all show up at Crane Industries, and Ivy immediately starts blaming Teresa. I will also say that when they got the call, when she was at the Bennett's home and they got Sam got the call from Teresa, she also was like, what has Teresa done now? Like that, because she found out that Ethan had been in an accident. She thinks that Teresa did it. So then they get there. And it's like, he's the one. You have a problem with your son. What do you mean? This has Teresa all written all over it? He threw himself down an elevator shaft. I don't know what to tell you, lady. It has nothing. I would only give Ivy a little bit of like wiggle room here if Teresa was the one stuck on the elevator and Ethan was trying to save Teresa. But Teresa's not even the one on the elevator. He's trying to save Whitney and Julian. And so, she gets there and immediately just starts blaming Teresa for everything. But why is on the elevator eventually snack and the elevator begins to fall? Oh, I know. So a lot of my notes, I also sometimes I speak to text my notes.
Oh, okay.
And they don't turn out so great.
I thought you just abbreviated.
No. Sometimes I speak to text and it does not make any sense, but then I understand what it is that I was trying to say. Yeah. So the wires on the elevator start to snap and the elevator begins to fall, but then it kind of like bounces back and forth between like the shaft walls and it gets wedged between the walls. This is when Sam calls Luis and tells him to bring Hank with him. He says that Hank is part of the rescue team now. So, okay. So they call Hank. My thing is, I don't understand why they called just Sam. Right? Like, why did Teresa only call Sam? Why not call 911? Call the fire department. Call everybody you can to say, like, we need help over here. But for sure, call the authorities. And I know Sam is the police chief, so it does make sense for her to call him. But it also makes sense for you to call, like, 911, because what is police chief Sam going to do? He doesn't have the equipment that you need, right? To call the fire department. So anyway... Nobody did that. Only Sam got called. And then Sam called Luis, who also is just another cop. And then Sam picked up Hank on the way, I guess, and came. And apparently there's a whole rescue crew. Whatever. Because the rescue crew, like Hank gets there. The rest of the rescue crew gets. Why can't I say rescue? My God, I keep going rescue. The rest of the rescue crew. God, that's tough to say. Say it 5 times fast. Wait, the rest of the rescue crew. The rest of the rescue crew.
Rescue.
The rest of the rescue crew. I'm getting it. Okay. The rest of the rescue crew all show up, and then Hank's like, "Where's that winch I asked for?" So they show up with none of the materials they need to mount a rescue. So they all leave again.
Delay it even more.
They all leave again. I said, what the fuck kind of rescue crew? What the fuck kind of rescue crew is this? I want to say rescue crew so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, they show up, they don't have the materials that they need, or equipment that they need, and they all leave again. This town, as I have
just
said,
delaying it like crazy.
Over and over again, nobody in this town is good at their jobs. Every single person in this town is terrible at their job. Terrible at their job. So that just made me laugh. I was like, what the fuck is the point of the rescue crew with no equipment?
Yeah, that's the first thing you should be holding on to.
Yeah, they showed up and they had a chain. They had a chain. Okay, great. So anyway, the women, particularly Teresa, are panicking, and obviously Eve is very upset her daughter's on this elevator. Ivy's very upset her son's passed out on that elevator, on top of it. And of course it makes sense for Teresa to be so upset. So Grace is the one woman who is supposed to be kind of keeping them calm. So she kind of makes them go to another room, like off to a office. Actually, I think it was Sam that was like, get these women out of here, basically.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it was TC when Teresa was acting up, and he mentions like, "Hey, get these women out of here."
Yeah, basically, what somebody said it. So I believe it. I believe TC would say some dumb shit like that. So yeah, so Grace like takes them off to an empty office, and then we get like some weird conversation that I felt was misplaced. I felt like this conversation between Ivy and Teresa was unnecessary. I felt like the conversation between Ivy and Eve was unnecessary. So, but I'll tell you about it anyway. They go to the office, and Eve goes to get Teresa a sedative.
You want a sedative or something to quiet your nerves?
Eve goes to find a sedative for Teresa. Grace goes to get some water for Teresa. And when they leave, Ivy's left alone with Teresa, and she starts to berate Teresa. You can cut the act, Teresa. The audience has left the building. All the moaning and the keening over Ethan. I don't buy it for 1 minute. And then Teresa's like, what are you talking about, Ivy? Your son could die. Right. Like, why is your energy focused on me? put some energy into, maybe put some positive energy into the universe that maybe your son will survive. Why is so much of your smoke and energy on Teresa? And it's so nasty and negative in this moment.
Yeah. Isn't that like displacement anger? It's like a defense mechanism. Like she just has to find some kind of person to, attack.
Place blame on. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. But I just felt like it was so.
It was nasty.
It was so nasty. It was so over the top. It was just an excuse to talk. It was just an excuse to be mean to Ethan. I mean, to Teresa. If that's what it felt like. It felt like she was using this whole thing with Ethan as an excuse to be like extra nasty to Teresa and let loose on Teresa because that's just how she feels and wants to do that all the time.
Yeah, she's really stuck on that.
Yeah, and so Teresa says, what are you talking about, Ivy? Your son could die. He could already be dead. And Ivy says, and if he is, it's all your fault. All you have done since day one is systematically destroy his life. Bitch, what are you talking about? This girl, is Ivy still on drugs? Is that what it is? She's still on those painkillers?
I think so.
Because this is erratic behavior.
But people do react that way in traumatic instances.
Yeah, but to say that this particular instance is Teresa's fault? How? Where do you draw those? What points are you connecting? What dots are you connecting to make this Teresa's fault? I don't see it. Because the truth is, Teresa was at work. Ethan showed up in her office. She didn't know he was coming. She didn't tell him to come. He came to her office, and then Ethan decided to throw himself down a fucking not a mine shaft. We're in the elevator shaft, a different kind of shaft. He gave himself the shaft, right? Like he decided to throw himself down the elevator shaft. It's so funny. I keep wanting to say mine shaft because we used to say it so much on, like we did that mine shaft storyline for so long.
Oh yeah.
And now I just want to keep saying mine shaft, but it's an elevator shaft. Yeah, he threw himself down the damn elevator shaft. I didn't have anything to do with that. Yeah. Nothing, actually. For once, Teresa really has nothing to do with this, right? But anyway, Ivy's blaming Teresa. She says, and Teresa says, that's not fair. And she says, well, it might not be fair, Teresa, but it's true. It's because of you that Ethan found out he wasn't Julian's son. Girl, again, you're off on a tangent, and we need to be worried about Ethan's like real life right now, and you're talking about and also it's not her fault that he's not Julian's son, right? It's yours. It's your fault. My thing with Ivy is I actually think a lot of Ivy's anger and vitriol is really directed at herself, but she uses Teresa as like a conduit. Like she uses Teresa as a surrogate. But maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Everybody interprets things differently. But this whole speech, so I'm going to say the speech, and I think you'll understand why I feel like she's actually angry at herself. She's not mad at Teresa. She is mad at Teresa. Don't get me wrong. Of course she's mad at Teresa. But I think she has a lot of anger for herself, but she won't say that, right? So she says, it's because of you that Ethan found out he wasn't Julian's son. It is because of you that he has lost everything he ever worked for. Open up your eyes, Teresa. If it weren't for you, my son would be alive and well and probably married to Gwen. They would have a child now, maybe another one on the way. It's like, again, none of that was Teresa's fault. The fact that Ethan is not Julian's son is 100% on Ivy. And the fact that, and truthfully, if you want to go all the way back, the fact that all that came out is because of Ivy. Why were you holding on to all of that shit? You should have gotten rid of it. If you didn't want that shit to ever come out, you shouldn't have even had it. You shouldn't have had it. I'm sorry, you should have burned it. When Pilar told you to burn it, you should have burned the shit. So, but just like Teresa, she doesn't listen to Pilar, right? So I personally, even though Gwen and Rebecca are the ones who sent the paternity the email to the tabloids or whatever, in my mind, it will always be Ivy's fault. The whole thing. Everything falls to Ivy because you have to keep going all the way back to what is the real cause. What What is the real cause of all of this? And the real cause of all of this is that you were hiding Ethan's paternity from him for his entire life. And then you held on to the proof that he was not Julian's son. The one thing that could blow his whole life up, you decided to hang on to it for sentimental reasons. It's Ivy's fault.
Yeah.
It's Ivy's fault.
When we get to the watch party, I think when we talk about like the Enneagram stuff, I think we could pretty sure say that she's a type 8 challenger. All about control, dominating, decisive, you know what I mean? A lot of manipulation. She doesn't want to admit to any fault. Like, and I think Teresa is a little bit too, and that's why I think they have
they're a lot alike. We've talked about that. Yeah, we've talked about that. They're a lot alike. Their motives are very similar. I feel like we give, and when I say we, I don't mean me particularly. I mean like the Passions fandom in general. Gives Teresa a lot more shit than Ivy gets, but Ivy has done way worse things, especially up to this point, in pursuit of Sam than Teresa has ever done. Way worse.
Yeah.
So
knowing that, I kind of give Teresa more grace. You know, I think I could understand why she, you know, and why she acts the way she acts. It's all about control. Yeah. You know, she's always trying to control the narrative. Yeah. Just like Ivy is.
Yeah. So Teresa stands up to Ivy and tells her to stop it. She says, everything I've ever done, was meant to help Ethan. I never did anything to hurt him. And if you don't believe that, then you don't know the first thing about real love. And don't you dare try to compare your love for Sam Bennett to my love for Ethan, because there is no comparison. Because you abandoned Sam Bennett to marry Julian because he was rich, because he had the Crane name. Ivy takes issue with this. She says, that's not the way it happened at all. You sure? You sure about that? That's not the way it happened? Because I'm pretty sure that basically is how it happened and what happened. Ivy says, that's not the way it happened at all. Marrying Julian was the biggest mistake I ever made. Nobody said it wasn't a mistake. We just said your motives for it were because he was rich and he had a Crane name.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody said it wasn't a mistake. We all know it was a mistake. And she says, I've regretted it for 20 years. And Teresa says she doesn't believe it, but Ivy says, I don't care, yada, yada, yada. And then they talk about like the visions from the party, which was kind of a weird, this whole conversation I felt was misplaced, personally. It's with all the things that are going on with Whitney and Julian in the elevator. I could have used more Julian and Whitney, to be honest.
Yeah.
They could have cut this whole thing.
This is all filler.
Yeah, they could have cut this whole thing because they're not saying anything new to each other. They're just reminding us, the audience, that these two women are at odds and that Ivy really, really hates Teresa. Teresa doesn't hate Ivy. I think Teresa really respects Ivy, actually. But
oh yeah, I think so.
But,
I think definitely respects.
But Ivy hates her. So anyway, they talk about the visions, and Ivy talks about how she saw how her life could have been if she had had the courage to follow her heart. Exactly. You didn't have the courage to follow your heart. That's what Teresa basically said to you. And she says, and I would do anything to have that wonderful life I saw myself living with Sam. Grace walks in on this portion of the conversation and here's this, so I will say, I do think maybe we did all that to get to this point, because this was the only line in the conversation, and the fact that Grace walked in on her saying this, that is moving our story forward. It's the only thing that's moving us forward in any direction. So it highlights for us that now Grace knows that Ivy is really still up to her old tricks, and she does still want her life with Sam. So Grace is aware. And then they just keep talking about the visions, and what's her name? Ivy. She brings up Grace's vision with David. She brings up Eve's vision with Wait, did she bring up Eve's vision? No, she doesn't bring up Eve's vision. She brings up Eve's past. She alludes to Eve's past. Which Teresa, it was actually so cute that Teresa, because Teresa is so truly still very like naive in a way, right? Because she was like, oh, what are you talking about? Dr. Russell's past, her first love was TC. Of course, Mr. Russell is her first love. And Whitney told me all about it. And I don't know, there was something so sweet about it.
She mentions that TC and E's relationship is the reason why she thinks her and Ethan are gonna make it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What have you been
because
seeing
she
from their
doesn't, she
relationship?
thinks, because she believes, because it's the narrative that has been told to her entire life, right? She's known these people her entire life.
Yeah.
And they've been married her entire life. And she's known them to have a wonderful marriage her entire life. She also believes that they are each other's first love, right? She believes that TC was Eve's first, because that's what TC believes. And that's also what Whitney believes. And so that's all she knows about them. And so, yeah, she thinks that there's a comparison between her great love for Ethan and their great love together, because she thinks they're in the same boat, but they're not. They're obviously not. She just doesn't know that because she's young and naive, and she doesn't know everything, right? So anyway, at some point, Grace argues with Ivy about the annulment. She says, I think it was Ivy says to Grace, like, and do you even really want this annulment? It doesn't seem like it. And they argue a little bit. She also threatens Eve. Oh, hey, baby. There's a baby in the frame. It's okay. Sometimes, listen, it's funny. Your daughter just came into frame, and let's see. Eric's dog sometimes comes in, and Karen's cat sometimes comes in. And so now we've had a dog, a cat, and now we've had a baby.
Oh, man.
Into the chat on Passions Podcast.
She wants to guest host too.
Yeah. Hey, sweetheart. What was I saying? Anyway, moving on. Luis, Antonio, and Sheridan all show up. Everybody's waiting around for the rescue squad to come back. We're all just waiting around. And somebody says, like, oh, we can't get on the, because they eventually cut the power. Roy does eventually cut the power to like the electrical wires or whatever. So it's like safe in that sense to go in, that you won't get electrocuted. But there was something about like, we're too heavy. We have to wait for the rescue crew to come back with the winch and some bullshit like that. Oh, sorry. Is your baby in there? I'll cuss it.
That's fine.
So Teresa gets the bright idea. I'm not as heavy as they are. And she just runs and leaps on into the elevator shaft and jumps onto like one of those wires, and she's like hanging on to it, and she starts to slip because she has no upper body strength, because I've never seen her do any workouts or anything. And I don't know what made her think that she could get get in there and rescue a grown ass man. But I think what it was, that because when the elevator like shifted, Ethan like slid, and they were worried that he was going to slide off of the elevator and down the shaft. So she was trying to get to him so she could at least get him back up on top of the elevator, which eventually she does. Mm-hmm. So there's that. She did do that. But I thought it was so stupid, her running and jumping in there, and like she's Spider-Man or something. And Ivy
throws in an insult in there, right? She's like, that's stupid.
Yeah, she calls it. She did. Yeah. So that, she botches it, but kind of. But it is now we have to rescue you too. Like she did. Yeah. She and Ethan. You know what I will say is, the last couple of weeks have very much highlighted how similar Teresa and Ethan actually are, because Ethan did the exact same thing. What are you doing? Right? He just runs in there, and there's nobody around to help. It's just him and Chad and Teresa. And he just jumps in and then gets electrocuted, even though the maintenance man tells him, you're going to get electrocuted. Can't go in there. It's too dangerous. He just does it anyway and makes the situation worse. Teresa did the exact same thing. She just runs in there, jumps on the wire or whatever. And now we have a fourth person to rescue, right? So it's interesting. They are similar people.
Yeah.
Ethan and Teresa. So anyway, this Antonio and Luis at this point decide that they are going to save what's her name? Teresa. Nothing. I want to say this. There's a lot of like talking about saving people and a lot of talking about doing things, and nothing really gets done.
Nobody's doing it.
Yeah, like nothing really gets done. At one point, Sheridan is really concerned and like, no, you guys, it's too dangerous. And then Grace, haven't you done enough? Haven't you done enough? Grace like pulls her to the side and is like, it seems like you're more concerned about Antonio than Luis. Shut up. Shut up. You just shut up. You just shut your fucking mouth. And so she says to her, you know, is it possible that you have deeper feelings for Antonio than you thought? Sharon says, I don't think so. And then Grace says, well, you might want to think about it because I'm pretty sure Luis is going to ask you the same question. Shut up, Grace. Shut up. This isn't about us right now. Like, people are dying, Kim. People are dying, Kim. Like, this isn't.
She hasn't sabotaged enough things for the day.
Oh God. Well, and you know what? It's just she wants somebody else to be mixed up in like this weird love triangle, like she is, I guess. Yeah. Although Sheridan's already mixed up in the weirdest love triangle, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, she just wants, I don't know, to commiserate with somebody else who also has feelings for two men, I guess. I don't know. So finally, this is actually the note where the rescue crew arrives but don't have the right equipment, and so they leave again. I said that earlier, but it actually happens at this point because they Hank shows up and he's waiting for them, and then when they finally arrive, they don't have the right equipment, and so they all particularly a winch that was on Sam's boat, and they couldn't figure out how to get it off the boat, and so Hank's like, well, I know how to do it, I'll do it. So they all leave again. Anyway, Teresa does manage, like I said, to get to Ethan. He's still alive. She manages to pull him back up on the elevator. Julian actually at one point they see Ethan's body like on top of the elevator, and Julian is like, oh my God, my son, I need to save my son. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. He didn't think, he saw Ethan and he was like, that's my son. And I love that because I hated how this show, once the real paternity came out, it was like Julian was supposed to just, okay, well, that's not my son. But I love that he like instinctively was like, that's my kid. I have to do something for my kid. I have to save my kid.
Yeah, that connection doesn't go away that quick. Like the emotions are still there.
Yeah, I imagine it wouldn't go away ever, right? This is somebody you raised from a baby. You were there when they were born. I feel like I imagine it wouldn't go away ever. You just will always feel like that. And he does kind of talk about that with Whitney because he's like, she says something about the fact that he called him his son, and he's like, yeah, it happens. It's just, that's my son. I don't know. I've having a hard time breaking the habit. But anyway, Whitney at one point, so Julian wants to save Ethan, but then Whitney falls through the floor or something. Yeah. Did you understand the logistics of this? No?
No, because that would mean there's a hole the bottom of the elevator, right?
Yeah, I was confused. I don't understand where she fell through, because then she was on the side holding onto a bar.
Yeah, I don't know. There's typically a hatch on top, but I don't see, passions. They just gotta put some storyline.
Yeah, well, she falls through the floor, and she's hanging on for dear life to some sort of bar, and then Julian manages to pull her back up, and he saves her, and it was lovely. It was amazing. Everything, all the things. Meanwhile, throughout all of this, we have to remember Eve is like trying her best to keep it together while her daughter's life quite literally hangs in the balance. Ivy throughout is taunting Eve about her past with Julian coming out and being like, you better basically you better toe the line, or else I'm gonna, out you to your family and blah, blah, blah. It's like, my daughter and your son are hanging by a literal thread in an elevator shaft. Like, can't this wait? Can't this wait?
She's obsessed. What kind of love are you seeking from Sam where you have to go through all these lengths? Like
yeah, she just keeps taunting Eve throughout this. It's like, take a break, Ivy. Take a break. Take a break. So then Luis and Antonio, they pick up the chain that the rescue crew left behind and they send it down to Teresa and tell her to like hook it to the main support beam on the elevator to help support it so it won't fall. And so she manages to do that. Then my next note is something going on with David, question marks. What is his part in this rescue effort? Because he's talking like he might die. And I don't know where I missed it, but at some point David went to the elevator room. I don't know what this is, where he is.
Sam or no, I think it was the elevator guy mentions that there's some kind of control lever that they could.
Yeah, it's like a manual brake.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe electricity could spark when trying to pull the lever. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand this one bit. I didn't understand it one bit. I was so confused, but I also was not invested enough to go back and figure out how this happened and how he got here. But he's in some sort of room with levers. Wrong lever! Like he's in some room with levers and he's like holding this lever and he's like, if I just want you to make sure you take care of John, talking to Grace because Grace is randomly there with him.
Yeah, like, they all follow.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you, if anything happens to me, take care of John. And she's like, of course, he's my son. And yeah, he's talking like he's about to die, but it's like, you're not on the elevator. It was I was very confused. There was an open, gaping hole in the wall, which is, I guess, where the elevator shaft was too. I don't know. It was all very confusing. I'm sorry, y'all. I wish I could do better for y'all. But no, anyway,
they just made it all up.
Sam goes down to the finds them in the elevator room. He's like, I thought I told you not to come down here. Again, I missed that conversation. I don't know. There was so much chaos going on. So there's no, you know. Ivy obviously is with Sam because she follows him everywhere. And they walk in on Grace telling David that she loves Sam, but she loves him too. She's like, I do love Sam, but I love you too, David. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, he's manning this manual brake and then Sam comes in and he doesn't like what he heard. And then he gets the call that the winch has finally arrived. So he heads to go back upstairs, but he says he tries to take Grace with him and she refuses to go with him. He's like, come on, Grace, let's go. He says like to David, like, I'm taking my wife with me. And he like grabs her and she pulls away from him. She's like, I'm staying here. I'm staying with David. I have to stay with him in case he needs anything. What can you do? Quickly.
So she's pretty much broken up with Sam, right?
Clearly. Sam is very exasperated. He just gives up. He says, whatever you want. And he leaves. And so, yeah, they're just acting like his life is in mortal danger. And I don't know why. I missed something somewhere. Like somebody bring me up to speed on the Discord. So then we see that the chain holding up the elevator, which of course, because it's a fucking elevator with 4 people on it, the chain starts to give way. Like one of the links starts to come loose, and then it breaks entirely, and then the elevator starts to plunge down the elevator shaft, and we hear screams. It was crazy, and David pulls on that manual brake, and that's where we ended this week. We don't know what happens. We don't know. Obviously, we know that these 4 characters do not die in this accident, because we would have no show without Teresa, Ethan, Whitney, or Julian. There just would be no show without them, the 4 of them. But that is the end. We end on like a cliffhanger. So, I actually went ahead to the next episodes to see what happened. I didn't watch the whole episode. I just like skipped to the elevator shaft parts.
Okay.
But yeah, let's talk now. It's time to go on to magic. And I'm gonna zoom through this. You ready for a speed run? Nothing happens. So let's just start there. Nothing happens. We'll start with Tabitha and Cracked Connie, who are at Tabitha's house. Connie's watching TV, and it turns out what she's watching on TV is like the People in Harmony. As usual, they're just watching the People in Harmony struggle. And so they eventually start to kind of bond over Tabitha's like past misdeeds, and they're flipping through the channels of all the things that have happened this week. So at one point they're watching the elevator shaft. At one point they're watching the sham wedding between Antonio and Sheridan. And then when they're watching that, Tabitha tells Connie that, you know, she's been fucking with them for millennia, basically. Yeah. And then talks about, we get clips of the Titanic. We get clips of Anthony and Cleopatra. We get conversation about when they were cavemen. Like literally she talks about all of that. That's all you need to know about what's going on with Tabitha and Connie. Nothing at all. Meanwhile, Charity is still in the hospital, remember, because she just got this heart like 2 days ago. It's crazy that that's the amount of time that has passed. Like no time has passed.
I know.
No time has passed.
Maybe a week.
Yeah. So they're all at the hospital. Charity, Miguel, Simone, and Kay are all at the hospital. And Simone and Kay go outside of the room at one point. Simone, of course, is accusing Kay of conjuring that evil baby that was running around that scared Charity, which actually for once Kay had nothing to do with it, and she tells Simone as much. She's like, I had nothing to do with that, Simone. I don't know where that baby came from, but then she says, but if Charity keeps making a big deal about it, Miguel's gonna see that she's got the emotional stability of a firefly, at which point he'll realize he wants to be with me for the rest of his life. It's like, okay, girl. I mean, we've already seen he's seen how unstable she is. That doesn't matter to him. Then there's conversation about Kay and trying to keep Kay considering letting Ivy destroy her parents' marriage. Simone says some stupid stuff about how her parents and Kay's parents are all saints and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? They're not saints and we know it. Then there's some kind of speech about Miguel loving her because he hasn't. Oh, yeah. Kay gives Simone a speech about how the fact that Miguel hasn't told Charity the truth about how he slept with her somehow proves that he loves Kay and not Charity. It is backwards thinking. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what she says. I'm just telling y'all what the people wrote. Okay. Then inside the room, Miguel starts to tell Charity, he's like, you know what? There's something that you need to know. So he actually starts to tell Charity the truth. He struggles to tell her the truth, and Kay and Simone start to walk in, and then they realize, oh, he's about to tell her. Then Kay now is changing her tune and says, see, this actually is even better for me. He's going to tell her the truth. Like, well, a minute ago, you said that if he doesn't tell her the truth, it means that he loves you. But now that he's telling her the truth, it's somehow good for you because that means that, what, you think they're going to break up and he'll be with you? Or I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. Kay thinks it's going to work out for her either way. That's basically the gist of this whole thing is Kay thinks it's going to work out for her either way. Either way, if Miguel doesn't tell Charity the truth, she thinks it's because he's in love with her. I don't know why that is what her thinking is. I don't, but that's what she says.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, she thinks if Miguel tells her the truth, then, you know, it's going to blow up their relationship and that in the end, she will end up with Miguel. Whatever. It's very silly. They fall into the room because they're like very cartoonishly eavesdropping. So then they fall into the room like in a cartoon. And they're like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. We'll leave. And Miguel says, no, you should stay and listen to what I have to say. And then he gets cold feet. He does not tell Charity the truth. He just tells her that he feels very lousy about the fact that he didn't realize that zombie Charity wasn't the real Charity. Then he gets up to go get a soda. Like I said last week, this man is always off to get a beverage, right? Yeah. That's all he does. It's like, I'm going to go get a soda. I'm going to go get a hot chocolate. I'm going to go get some water. Oh, he's a
I saw somebody mention that in the comments.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
He's so thirsty. He's always off getting some kind of drink. Yeah. And so when he leaves, Kay obviously follows him. And then she asks him why he didn't tell Charity the truth. And she suggests that maybe you don't think your love is strong enough to handle the truth. And she thinks this has convinced him to tell Charity the truth about them. But he actually goes back in and it seems that he's about to propose to Charity. And Kay tries to go back into the room to try and stop it, but Simone kind of stands in her way and won't let her in. And that's the end. That's all I have. You have anything to add?
No, well, with the Crack Connie stuff, there's a couple of attempts to, these one-liners that are pretty funny. Like, she says something like, to Tabitha, your power is as weak as this reception on the TV. And then she says, look at this picture. It has more snow than Montana. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of those things.
Little one-liners, I like when other people write them down because I never do because they're not important to me at all. Like, oh.
Nah, they really are. They really are.
So, well, that's it for today. Where can the people find you online?
Papa Grinch at IG.
All right. And you can find me on the Discord. You can find me on the Patreon, patreon.com/passionspodcast. And with that, you are my passion for life.